Hi, this is Ranger Jonah with DeKalb County, and today I'm thinking about poison ivy. So I'm going to do a little primer on some good ways to identify poison ivy and how not to mistake it with some lookalikes. But the first thing you should probably know about poison ivy is that even though we think about it as a pest, poison ivy is actually a native plant that is a food source for native birds. For instance, they eat its berries when the berries fruit. And then in the fall, boy, those leaves turn beautiful crimson colors. So it's actually quite a beautiful plant, even though the oils on its surface can make us itch bad. So here are a few tips for looking for poison ivy and being able to identify it with accuracy. The first thing, of course, is leaves of 3, let it be. You've probably heard that rhyme before, and you probably know that poison ivy has 3 leaves. But of course, there's many other plants that do. We'll talk about that shortly. The second tip is this a vine or a shrub or a tree? Poison ivy is always a vine. The next thing to think about is, what is the leaf shape? Does it have 3 leaves or more? And are the leaves, do they have rounded lobes? Do they have teeth, serrations, or are they relatively smooth? And then the last thing to look for is the stalk. Does the stalk have tendril-like hairs, or does it have thorns? And does each stem of each leaflet come out of the stalk opposite at the same node on either side, or alternate, where it's almost like rungs of a ladder coming out of the stalk? Those are the things to look for. And now let's look at some examples. The first thing is it a vine? Well, I have 3 lookalike vines all around me right now. The first one, you'll know pretty immediately, is not poison ivy. The leaf shape looks somewhat like poison ivy. It is a vine climbing on this tree, but how many leaflets? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not poison ivy. You might hear me talk about leaves versus leaflets. Well, in this case, the Virginia creeper has a compound leaf, as does the poison ivy plant. A compound leaf means that this whole segment here is one leaf that is made up of 5 leaflets. So when we talk about leaves of 3, let it be, it actually should be leaflets of 3, let it be. So this is a vine, mostly the correct leaf shape, but too many leaflets. Here's another one. Once again, this is a vine. It has a lot of hairy tendrils. Can you see those? Attaching it to the tree. But how many leaflets? Well, if you just glance at it, you might think that there's leaves of 3, since there's 3 lobes, but there is only 1 leaf on this plant, and this is English ivy. And not too far away, we have yet another vine that has a very similar leaf shape. One, 2, 3, and yes, 3 leaflets. It is a vine. There's this vine crawling on the ground here. It doesn't really have any hairy tendrils, but with this particular plant, you can look at the leaf shape and see how rounded it is with lobes, as opposed to having some kind of teeth-like serrations on the side. This one is not poison ivy. It is kudzu. I have one more to show you, and then we'll get over to the poison ivy. Here it is. This plant right here also has 3 leaflets. But do you see how serrated those leaves are? So the leaf shape is not quite right. Is it a vine? Well, sometimes it does look like a vine, though in this case it's a little bit more shrub-like. But if you look at this stalk, Do you see the thorns on it? This is a bramble. Probably a dewberry or a blackberry. So again, not poison ivy. So now that we've looked at how many leaflets does it have, what's the leaf shape, what about the stalk? Now, let's go check out some poison ivy. And here we are at a nice little patch of poison ivy. How many times have you heard somebody talk about poison ivy as nice? Well, this one right here has leaflets of 3. But then I have to figure out, is it a vine? And as I look around the side of it, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this, there are small, hairy tendrils. I can't tell if this is a vine from here because this patch is all growing on the ground, but I can look at how the leaflets are growing out of the stalk to see if it's opposite or alternate. An example of opposite leaves are a box elder. Again, the leaflets look a lot like the poison ivy. However, each leaflet stem comes out of the stalk of the plant opposite each other. And you can look at this right here and see exactly what I mean. Now back to the poison ivy. If you look very closely, you see we have one leaflet growing here and another growing here. So instead of opposite of each other, they are alternate. The leaf shape's right, the number of leaflets is correct, and the stalk seems correct. So this is poison ivy. Don't get yourself confused with other plants, but if you do, wash your hands afterwards. This is Ranger Jonah with DeKalb County, signing off.